accept the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion?
Just I want to remind everybody that NC Department of Transportation is going to have a information meeting tomorrow afternoon at the Sea Trails Convention Center from 4 to 7, where they will talk about the Carolina Bays Parkway. That's the proposals and the options for developing the road between South Carolina State Road 31 and US 17. So it won't be coming through Sunset Beach, as best we can tell, but it will have an impact on this area. So if you're interested, please go by. It's an information briefing, so they should have maps and displays and be able to answer questions.
Is there anything else?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple of things. I won't be here for the audit review, but I did review it. And the financial statement is extremely strong in the sense that in fiscal year 2019, which ended June of 2019, the end of June, although we spent just about $700,000 on non-budgeted items in fiscal year 19. Much of that was due to the island sidewalks. That was not estimated. You okay? So when you include that factor, the fund balance for the end of fiscal year 19 has grown to $9.8 million. I don't recall the last time, I don't recall the last time when it was that high. That's a good thing, but it raises some questions. One of the reasons that it's so high, and I'm sure we'll find ways, or the new council will find ways to spend it, is because we increased our fire fee 70% up to the reporting of the audit report, June 30, 2019. So this does not include the one penny tax increase and the 5% fire fee increase that occurred in fiscal year 20, which is this year. My only comment is, and I've said this 1,000 times, are we being overtaxed? And I say this because we violated the revenue neutral policy that no one seems to probably fully understand. But when you raise a fee, you're supposed to reduce the tax rate. We didn't do that. And as a result of that, there's a lot of money in the piggy bank. What the new council will do with it, I don't know. But I'm hoping that they'll give a dividend to the taxpayers. The equivalent of the fire fee that has gone up and the one penny tax rate is about 5 cents. Our tax rate is 16 cents. Is about 5 cents. So you could reduce it, let's say, to 11 or 12 cents. It also has been said that our tax rate is low, 16 cents. Our tax rate is low because our assessments are higher than most towns. So there's an offset to that. And I just want to try to explain it to you. So I'm hoping the new council, I really am, I'm hoping the new council and mayor will recognize this and plan accordingly. And my other comment is, thank God I've got just a couple of more minutes. I received a bunch of phone calls. When I go to Food Lion, they weren't very happy with what occurred last meeting. They didn't like the idea of reversing the dredging decision when no one was here. because it was not on the agenda. Now, what the council did was legal. Council can put anything on the agenda anytime it wants and vote on it. But that lacks transparency. And quite frankly, if you ever read the Code of Ethics policy, it violates our Code of Ethics policy. It's not a right thing to do. And there was no excuse to do it. And I think that's unfair to you. Whether you want dredging or not is not the issue. There's going to be dredging. Whether it's 5 feet or 2 feet, the state will have to decide. And we're spending money to have that decision made. And I will leave you with one warning. If that decision by the CRC allows the 5-foot dredging, I can assure you that there will be lawsuits to further delay this dredging program. And I don't think anyone wants to see that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I want to say something. I'm proud of what this council has done in the last 4 years, and I'm proud that I raised the fire tax to have income coming from the outside the town, the city of Sunset Beach, equivalent of about $40,000. And 16 cents a hundred was the same rate when I became a councilman 4 years ago. So, and I think we've done a very good job on what we had to do when we had to do it.
Is there anyone else?
I have another one.
Go ahead, John.
All right. We still have time. I just also let everybody know that tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., the Old Bridge Historical Society will be having their annual Christmas celebration at the Old Bridge. Everybody is welcome to attend. There'll be caroling and festivities and cookies, lots of cookies. All right. Everybody's welcome to come.
Anything else?
This is enough.
Got 5 more minutes. I thought you were going to go longer. Okay, well,
I do want to add
I
one
knew
other
you
thing.
would.
I don't know if the finance department is here, but this audit that S. Preston Douglas put together had no deficiencies. And if you've ever been involved in audits, that's a remarkable accomplishment. So I would like to thank the finance department and the staff, because I think that's a tremendous accomplishment. And is Tara here tonight? Oh,
It's safe.
did you hear me? I gave you an atta girl for the no deficiencies in the audit report. And that's a major accomplishment, and you and the staff should be thanked for it. God bless you.
Anything else? We'll close the council work session. And by law, we can't start till 7 o'clock, so we've got about 7 minutes. 6.
Paul,
Can you just say we're in recess?
We're in recess. Didn't hear it. Paul?
I took it up here and put it up there.
Good idea.
I think so too. An improvement, I think.
It's winter time. It always happens.
It looks nice.
It's about to be a mess. Should have seen it Saturday. She was off humidity.
Carol wanted to come to see the
Only guys get the photos.
Yeah, I talked to her and she
When I was in high school, with my hair out to my shoulders. I had Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple curls. That ring.
had to stop off at River.
Ever since I shaved my head in college.
You have pictures. What about your,
I wish.
your book?
Even my 10th grade picture had all the curls straightened out. It's like, I don't really care.
have that problem too. I've lost a lot of stuff. Squirrels to the tune of $50,000.
Maybe I should be sitting, maybe I should be sitting this way.
So it seems like we have a happy family, you know?
Oh, I didn't ask about that.
I want to keep this seat right here. I want this seat right here. I'm not.
Danielle, you heading back tomorrow? Safe travels. That looks good. That looks good. That's about 70 pounds. Who's that? Chad. Fire chief.
Oh, okay.
So we'll go to pledge, then we do the statement, public hearings.
We got to open them, close them,
Right.
approve the minutes,
We gotta approve the minutes.
public comments. And then, Rich go first.
Yeah.
Three minutes.
At least 3 minutes, right? Last comments, 3 minutes. There you go. Let's time them. John, what was that seat? What time was that seat trails? What time? Old Bridge is 6. The Sea Trails.
C-12 between 4 and 7.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
Well, it's,
I think just
they have a bunch of stuff on display and information and people will answer questions. It's just
the
kind of
meeting's
go
not that
on.
long.
Just go in.
Yeah, it's not a, not a presentation or a formal activity.
And that's where it goes. That's where it goes.
Yeah, 31 when it ends there.
John.
9. Now it's going to go all the way to the.
John,
I knew that they wanted to do that.
It's been fighting for years.
Remember how they want to do it to go to Georgetown?
That's on its way though.
Yeah.
If you get off this 501 exit, you can see what it's done for miles already.
Yeah.
I would be surprised that's not open by the end of next year.
I hope so. That'd make it so much easier, you know, just to go to Charleston.
EPA groups will stop it with the swamps, the water. That's like Highway 73 in Myrtle Beach. The only way to get to Myrtle Beach from now. See, 501 goes across this way. They want 73, a new road to come in from the south. That's the only way to come into that bottleneck.
Right there.
Will you ever go there in July? It's backed up past Conway.
Yeah, it's a pain. I always come in, I go out now.
Yeah. Yeah, I sent my brother out 9, and he went to yeah, through all that, and then he jumped on 95 and went south to 20 and 20 Atlantic. He drove it.
Oh, yeah?
You know, he could drive back and forth. He didn't fly. So for Thanksgiving, yeah, he lives in 1,000 acres. He does it at least once or twice a year.
You ready?
no, I don't need to do that.
It's,
But I walk.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 7 o'clock regular council meeting. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Does any member of the council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? And if so, please state so at this time.
No.
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 I do not.
Okay, public hearings. Can I get a motion to open the public hearing for the UDO amendment fences in BR1?
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to open up the UDO and amendment fences in BR-1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You just have to make a motion to approve it.
No, no, that's later in the meeting. If anyone has any comments?
Comments?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Get a motion for the public hearing, minimum house size text amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Does anyone have any comments on the public housing?
I move we close the public meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes for approval, November 4th, 2019, first regular meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve November 4th, 2019, the first regular meeting minutes. Also, I'd like to approve the 19th, 2019, second regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comments on agenda items only, if anyone has a comment. Okay, next up are the farewell comments by the outgoing elected officials. Rich, you're the senior official. We'll let you go first.
No, I just, I wrote a letter in the Beacon thanking all the voters. And I wish the new mayor, Mayor Phillips, Councilman Borman, and Councilman Phillips, good health and good luck and success. Being a council member takes a long time. There's a lot of digging, a lot of understanding, and you're going to have to ask a lot of questions. And don't be afraid to. I'm just going to be sitting in a different chair. I love this town so much. We have a lot invested in it as taxpayers, and accountability is necessary. We don't have a check and balance system. The check and balance system is you, to have the courage to ask questions. And I know many of you don't, because you're afraid you may lose a friendship. Well, my advice is they were never friends. This is your town, it belongs to you. This is your money, and you've entrusted the people up here to spend it wisely for you and not themselves. God bless you all. I'm just sitting in a different chair. I hope I can find one. And I wish to thank the Beacon for their reporting and objectivity. You can learn a lot from their editorials. They're educational. So I wish to thank you, and God bless all of you. I had a rough 2 years, the past 2 years, but let me tell you, serving people is the ultimate. And you put your trust in me, and I will never forget it. God bless all of you.
Mark, go ahead.
I'd first like to thank the people, the staff of Sunset Beach. I think we have the best staff in the area. They do a fantastic job. Hiram is doing a great job. Lisa, our fire chief, and our police chief, and the Department of Department of Transportation. I'm really proud to have worked for the town for 4 years. It's been my honor. I think, and I ask the new council to do a great job. I'm sure they will. My prayers are with them, from the mayor to the two new council people. It's been my privilege, and thank you very much.
I just want to thank the staff. I knew nothing about public service when I came in here. They really helped me out. They answered every question I had, and I'm truly grateful for that. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Hiram. Everyone, thank you. I had a good time. It was very enjoyable. It was 8 months that I'll never forget. And thank you very much. Are you sure? I'm positive. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I had a good time. Enjoyed it.
Give that to Rich. I think you have to give the brass back. Thank you.
Repeat after you, or that one already stood? Yes,
Mark, thanks for service, man.
yes, most definitely.
I, David Shannon Phillips,
I, David Shannon Phillips,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution of laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office as mayor
the duties of my office as mayor
for the town of Sunset Beach,
for the town of Sunset Beach,
Brunswick County, North Carolina,
Brunswick County, North Carolina,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Thomas Borman,
I, Jamie Phillips,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and maintain
that I will support or maintain
that I will support or maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution of laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office as councilman
the duties of my office as councilman
the duties of my office as councilman
for the town of Sunset Beach,
for the town of Sunset Beach,
Brunswick County, North Carolina,
Brunswick County, North Carolina,
for the town of Sunset Beach, Brunswick County, North Carolina,
so help me God.
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Come on up, Tom.
Does it matter who is it?
We'll settle down. We'll settle down next meeting.
Yes, sir. All right, people, before we get this thing back started, just want to make a few little quick comments. First of all, just want to thank all the citizens for coming out tonight. But most of all, I want to thank for all the citizens that came out and voted. Your vote was heard. You done what you told me you was gonna do. You told these people what you were gonna do. You come out and supported. As I was on the campaign trail, a lot of people said they was ready for change. Not necessarily changing everything we do, but just changing things that makes the most important things to this town, which is Sunset Beach. That, at the end of the day, that is what everybody worries about. We are Sunset Beach, and we need to be strong. We need to agree to disagree on things, but we also need to listen to both sides, come in with open minds, and work together for what's best for this town as a whole. That's what I think everybody on this board is gonna be doing, and that's what we look for from the citizens. We want you to be informed and be able to keep up with everything that's going on, because an informed citizen is a strong citizen. We look forward to working with each one of you. Now we'll get this meeting going. First up is for the appointment of Mayor Pro Tem. Can I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to nominate Jamie Phillips as Mayor Pro Tem.
Do
Second?
I have a second? You have a second?
Second?
Do we have any more recommendations?
Don't we need to vote on this one
You want to go
first?
ahead and vote? Okay, all right. Want to call for a vote, please? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
You, aye. All right, all opposed?
Nay.
Hey,
Okay.
I'd
Nay
like to
has it.
I'd like to make a motion
Go ahead.
that
Councilman
we
Murray.
appoint John Corbett as Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, I have a second.
Wait, what did the name?
Appointment for John Corbett to be Mayor Pro Tem.
I'm sorry,
That's
I'm
it.
confused.
The first one did not pass, so now we go
Because
to
it
the-
was a tie.
No, it was 3
No, it was 3-2.
You and I voted yay.
Yes.
Okay,
3-2, yes, ma'am.
okay.
All
I'm
right.
sorry, I didn't.
That's perfectly fine. I should have been a little more clear. But anyway, the motion on the floor is for John Corbett to be the Mayor Pro Tem. Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Second? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed?
Nay.
Aye has it. You will be the Pro Tem.
Thank
You
you.
want to change seats now, or
We'll do that at the next meeting.
next meeting? Yes, sir. All right. Next up will be the 2018-19 audit report from Mr. Lee Grissom. And we need a motion to open this.
No. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to, again, my name is Lee Grissom, S. Preston Douglas and Associates. I'm here to present the June 30th, 2019 audit. As alluded to earlier, it was a clean audit opinion, a really good year from an audit standpoint. So I just want to get that out of the way. For those of you who don't know the definition of an audit, the town is responsible for the financial statements, which you should have a copy of in front of you. The town's responsible for preparing the financials, for internal controls over financial reporting, including design and implementation of internal controls. Our job as auditors is just to give an opinion using materiality thresholds, risk assessment, and judgment. Therefore, these numbers, they're fairly presented, but it's not an absolute. So there's always kind of a whole. It's not everything. You can't by the dollar rely on an audit. So I just wanted to, for those of you that don't know the definition. But with that being said, this report includes a financial statement audit as well as an internal control audit. In both audits, there were no findings. So that's the highest level of assurance we could provide. So the staff did a tremendous job this year. I know there's been some turnover at the mayor position the last couple of years, but the people behind the scenes, do a terrific job, and it's a lot of the same faces. So, really strong in the finance department. A couple of housekeeping items. Management provided full access to accounting records. We had no new accounting policies. The last several years, we've had new pension guidance and pension implementation we had to deal with. Didn't have to deal with that in fiscal year 19. We had no disagreements with management. We found no illegal acts, and we did not consult with other audit firm. So next, I'd like to hit a couple of highlights from the report. First up, the general fund added $365,000 for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2019. Overall, the governmental funds added $141,000. There was no new debt issued during the fiscal year. The unassigned general fund balance compared to the expenditures for fiscal year 19, which is the emergency fund for the general fund, was 84%, which that represents a 10-month emergency fund in the general fund. That's an important metric that the local government commission likes to look at every year. The year before, there was a 101% emergency fund, which is 12 months. So the reserve's a little bit lower. So what that is, let me show you, pull the report out real quick.
Give us a page.
Let's look at page 12 of the report. So looking at page 12, you can see the column, the general fund column. So this is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. Now, if you scroll down to the fund balance category, you can see different restrictions in fund balance. So fund balance is essentially your equity of the town. The unassigned fund balance has no restrictions to it. So there's $5.7 million you're looking at, 5.7898. If you take that and divide it into, go to page 14, you divide it into the total expenditures for the general fund, which was $6.9 million. That gets you to the 84% that I mentioned. And that 84% is essentially, if you were doing your personal finances, a lot of people recommend 6 months of emergency fund for personal, your personal finances. In this case, the town has 10 months by that measure. Any questions about that? Okay, another thing in the general fund real quick, fiscal year 19, the town received 2 unexpected reimbursements from the NCDOT. This was related to 2016 bike lane widening that the town paid $829,000 for. And I think that the way I understand that, it was contributed for a project that was the town's portion of the project, but the town only needed, they were reimbursed, the town was reimbursed $387,000 of that amount. So that was an unexpected amount of funds that came back to the town in fiscal year 19. Tara, if she's here, may be able to, if you have any questions about that. All right, lastly, the handout that I provided, I just want to bring that up. The handout includes my contact information. If there's any information, any questions you have regarding the report in front of you, I know there's a lot of information there. Sometimes you don't want to ask questions in a board setting. That's on page 1 of the handout. Page 2 through 4 are most of the things I've already summarized here in the presentation. And then the Appendix A is the management representation letter. This is what management signed. This is a list of things that management said that they agreed upon for this audit engagement. Any questions so far?
I have one to start with. So, in a word or two, how would you describe the overall financial condition of the town?
Good. I'm glad you asked that. I think I started slow so far, but if you look at, I would like to bring attention to one other page. It's page 16 in the report. And this is the budget to actual for the general fund, and I keep bringing up the general fund because that's the main operating fund for the town. I mean, you can see the final budget versus actual in the expenditure section right in the middle. The town spent $743,000 under budget for fiscal year 19. And we went, in May, we came for interim audit field work. We usually walk through internal controls during that period. Both the town manager and finance officer were both, they had a policy going where they were looking at every single expenditure. I mean, it was a lot stricter than what we see at most towns. But I think that that was mostly the reason you see that $743,000, spending under the budget of that amount for fiscal year 19. So they did a terrific job, in my opinion.
So would you use the term better than good, excellent, great, tremendous,
Yeah.
best in the state?
I'd say pretty darn good job.
Thank you.
And one thing, Tara wanted me to bring up, there were significant capital outlay expenditures in fiscal year 19. So even here, the town had budgeted roughly a $700,000 deficit, meaning they were going to spend the town was going to spend fund balance. So as it turned out, you had a net increase in fund balance, most due to spending under in expenditures, plus that NCDOT that I mentioned. So those were the two main items that kind of gave you the results that you see in fiscal year 19. And final thing, that local government commission has reviewed the report, and there were no issues with the report, so they accepted it. So that's all I got. Any questions?
Did you find anything of concern?
No, like I said, it was almost unusual. Terry, you could elaborate on your policy of expenditures. It was around May 2019. What was going on? Can you remind me?
We didn't know that we were going to have the unexpected revenue. So Hiram and I had talked about it, and every single expense, all the way down to the dollar, department heads can attest to this, came through myself and Hiram to make sure that we weren't going to overspend our revenues. And then it just so happened that we got the unexpected revenue from the Department of Transportation, which is why our fund balance increased.
Any other questions?
I'll go ahead while I can. So this very much sounds like spending is within our means, and the spending policies of this town and the staff and the council have been responsible?
Yes, sir. And that's the main duty of the finance officer, to make sure that, that's the best you can do, to make sure you spend within the budget. And according to the results here, you can see that she did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks.
All right, next up on the agenda is the dredging project.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. We do need a motion to accept the audit as presented.
I move that we,
Go ahead.
I move that we accept the audit.
Have a second?
Second.
Se-
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Unanimous? Now next. I'm glad to see he was nervous as I am. All right, the next one is the dredging project update with the beach compatible sand placement. Mr. Robert Neal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I wanted to bring before you just a quick update. I also have a proposal for you to review. But as far as updating, about 2 months ago, the Corps notified us that they were not proceeding under the CAMA, the joint permitting process with the state. They were requiring a individual permit. So we had originally anticipated that the permitting process would be only through the state and would not need a separate permit through the Corps. The Corps generally just follows suit with the DCM, the Division of Coastal Management. They just follow suit. It's more or less the state does the processing. The Corps will review that permit, but they do not require public comments. They do not, well, the main thing they do not require is the public comments. They came back to us and said, because of the public comments received, that they want to do their own process. They wanted to ensure that the public notices were sent out, that the property owners were duly notified to their standards. So they separated the process into to two permitting applications, one for the state under the CAMA major, and then one for the Corps under the individual permit. Through that process, the Corps received, I believe, 198 comments that the applicant must respond to. Now, a lot of those comments are the same, and a lot of those comments are general in nature, but we still have to go through each of them and provide a response to those, and we're in the process of doing that. But in those comments, we understood, and what we've heard from these council meetings, there has been significant concern with beach placement on Sunset Beach, and that is my fault. We did not talk to the property owners in a manner that we should have, or I should have, before we initiated in that process. But I am quite confident at this point, which is a change from the last time I was here, that it will be expensive and time-consuming to try and place beach-compatible sand on Sunset Beach. As far as just working with the property owners to have them understand what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it, and they do have some legitimate concerns that I was unaware of, so that it's an educational process for me as well. But with their comments and the expense in time alone that I believe it would take to place beach-compatible sand on Sunset, as the original plan or the plan to date has been, I am recommending to the council that we move that beach placement site to Ocean Isle Beach. The original placement location was Ocean Isle Beach, but Ocean Isle Beach stated they did not or would not financially contribute to the project. So understanding that they would accept the sand, but they would not pay for any action to get to the sand, at least not financially contribute. They would do in-kind work, but they would not financially contribute to the project. So, but I believe with Sunset Beach being a creating beach and the issues that we're faced with, that it would be less expensive in time and finances to go back to Ocean Isle Beach and work that arrangement out to actually place sand on Ocean Isle Beach at no additional cost to them. They have offered to, I've had preliminary discussions with them, and they are considering what it would take for them to provide easements. And so Sunset Beach would not be required to provide easements. They would do that coordination, at least that's the way the conversations are going at this point. They expect them to work with us and in-kind work, but they would not contribute financially to the construction at any way. But I am proposing that we move that due to the volume of concerns we've received and are responding to, both in the Corps project. I believe the state also received these same comments. I have not seen them, but I have had conversation with the state before they issued the permit, and they were recommending that we move the site. They did not think we would be able to complete the project as it was placed on Sunset, if we placed it on Sunset Beach. This is where I went wrong, is I thought that if we explained the project to the property owners that we would be able to achieve that it's nice clean sand we're placing on your property. I thought it would be a no-brainer, but they voice some legitimate concerns. The main one being that in my experience, and it's from outside of this state, the in a dredging project, it is not, if dredging sand, if you're doing a navigation project for beneficial reuse, the property that you raise, if you place beach sand below mean low water, or below mean high water for that matter, if you raise state lands for beneficial reuse property, that material would not be state-owned land. However, I was wrong. The state does require us to record that property line, and although it's on paper only, it's not, there's no restrictions abided to that. It does officially become state land even for a navigation project, and that's where I was wrong in my recommendations and thought process. So at this point, I have to recommend that we first acknowledge that mistake, but then move and recommend that we at least have negotiations and talks with Ocean Isle Beach to move that site back. Under the North Carolina Administrative Code, under the state codes, state regulations, we have to, if we're moving beach-compatible sand, if we're dredging even for navigation projects, we have to keep that beach-compatible sand within the littoral system. In other words, the sediment budget has to remain the same for this area. This area could be considered from Charlotte Inlet through, I guess, Matt Inlet, or what would have been Matt Inlet, New Inlet. But so we cannot move sand outside of that unless we request a variance from the CRC. We can place it in an upland site and store it for beach placement. We cannot intermix it with other sand or other material that would contaminate it. By contaminate, I mean not make it non-beach compatible by grain size, too many sands and too many silts. So we, by the code, by North Carolina code, we need to, in order to keep sand in the system, we essentially almost have to go to Ocean Isle Beach. There are other alternatives, but that is the easiest to work with them and place sand on Ocean Isle Beach. The project cost is not that much more expensive, if any, but it would be placing sand on Ocean Isle Beach for no additional cost to them. That's where we're at with the update. We are moving forward with addressing the comments for the Corps permit. We do expect, by talking with the Corps today, do expect to receive a letters asking us what the progress is on that, and really reminding us that we need to get those in. They're on a 120-day clock, and that is running out. But they're going to notify us that we need to do that, and we are working on that, and we will have that done probably by mid-December. But we're also moving with the variance request, and we will have that for the town's attorney review by next Monday. So we still on track to have that done by submitted to the state by the January 1st deadline. So we are full moving as fast as we can to have that heard on the February CRC meeting. Other than drafting the actual request, we will need to send out public notices again to all the property owners and to anyone who submitted comments to the state under the permit. And so we're also moving forward to prepare that, to send those out next week. We have to show proof that the comments were either received or delivery attempted. And so that will be the last step that we'll be working on through the last half of December. Compile that documentation, submit that to DCM or the CRC rather for the variance request. Need to have those items in by January 1st. So we're all moving forward to that. Do believe we'll have that, but then comes so with that is the update. But the bad part is I am with very short notice here with a proposal, and understand it's short notice, and if we'd like more, if the council would need more time to review, I understand that, but do have a proposal in front of you for $56,000 and change to start working on the one is there are almost 200 comments from the Corps and additional project coordination, but mainly the material placement, identifying a beach compatible, identifying the sand on Ocean Isle Beach to ensure that it is beach compatible with the material that we're placing there. And what that requires is surveys and sediment analysis. We have to do at least 5 profile lines within our area that we identify as beach placement. We also have to do sediment samples, approximately 68 grab samples, have to have those analyzed for grain size analysis to classify it in terms of what is sand by USGS notification or identification, what is sand, what is silt, what is gravel, and what is classed or rock, larger than that. And although we don't expect any, we expect, Ocean Isle Beach, and this is the sand from South Jinks Creek that would go there. The sand it's the same sand that came off in Ocean Isle Beach, so putting it back there, I don't expect any issue there, but the state is gonna hold us to the line, and we've asked that question. It's kind of obvious that it's beach compatible, but they are gonna hold us to the line that we fully meet the North Carolina Administrative Code and the technical standards for beach fill projects. So that is why these proposals are here, to start work on that. This work would not interfere with the variance request. We anticipate moving through the variance request first before we make any changes to the permit, because if the variance request, if they come back and say no, then if they say no, we cannot dredge to -5, or we are limited only to -2, then I think the council would have a different decision to make. So we don't want to submit that permit request. We don't want to delay that answer. We want to get that answer first as to how the CRC views this project, and if indeed we have agency support for that variance. Up until this point, we fully believe we have full agency support from the state from the state, because those are the ones that will comment on it. But we believe we have full agency support for that variance request, and we need cannot verify that until we formally get in front of the CRC. But through conversations at this point, we are confident that we have full agency support, and so we're moving forward with that. But the proposal is for surveys and sediment work on Ocean Isle Beach to identify a placement area, to classify a placement area with a template, and then eventually move that into a minor, hopefully a permit modification, whether it be a minor or major, but a permit modification to switch the placement area from Sunset Beach to Ocean Isle Beach. And there's also project coordination cost in there as far as dealing with the 200 comments from the Corps, and just staying involved with the town as far as the progress reports, and moving forward as we have in that manner. But with that, I'll be happy. This work is eligible for the Water Resource Development Grant, so essentially 2/3 of it is reimbursable by the state, which comes to roughly $18,000 or so. 18,000 change would be town responsibility, and the remainder would be state responsibility. But like I said, I know this is short notice because I did not make the agenda package, but be happy to answer any questions or proceed as you see fit.
Question? Go ahead, Councilman.
First, just to be absolutely clear, the OIB sand placement has no impact at all on the process of the variance.
No, we would not impact, we would not in any way impact the variance or submit that.
However, on this proposal that you have here, the $20,984 for project coordination is actually money to support the responding to the questions from the Corps that are
Yes.
necessary for the variance. So you need that money to continue working on the variance. Is that what you're saying?
No,
No.
no. The Corps' federal permit. We don't expect any problem
Okay.
with the federal permit. They don't, this is a state rule that we're going to the variance for, not the federal.
Okay, okay, so I got the words wrong there, but my question is, do you need us to approve that roughly $21,000 right away so you can meet the deadlines for the variance in terms of answering the questions? Those questions those 198 questions that have to be answered have nothing to do with the variance.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct. They have nothing to do with the variance.
Okay, so all of this money goes to the OIB portion of the process?
Yes.
Okay, so if we want to take another couple of weeks to actually read this and discuss this, we can do that without having a negative impact on the variance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I have some questions. When you speak of moving this beach-compatible sand to Ocean Isle, what method will you use to move it to Ocean Isle?
The same hydraulic dredging.
Will you be trucking it, or,
The beach compatible sand, we'd never propose it. We want to do as much hydraulic as we can because it's quick, it's clean, and it's easy. So it would
okay,
be
that,
hydraulic
that
to a
means,
pipeline.
that means pumping it,
Pipeline, yes.
okay. So the pipelines would be on Ocean Isle Beach, not on Sunset Beach?
It would come, yes, it would be mostly on, it would not be on the beachfront of Sunset Beach. It would, in the Bay Area, through Drinks Creek and Tubbs Inlet, it would traverse through there in some manner, but it would not be on the beachfront.
Okay. You talk about the cost of answering the comments.
Yes.
And also studying for beach compatibility.
Yes.
Did we do studies of Sunset Beach for beach compatibility?
We did,
So we've spent that money one time already.
yes.
Okay.
Why must
How-
it be redone?
The work was done for Sunset Beach, for sand from Sunset Beach, and because we're moving that place, because I'm recommending moving that placement area, we have to look at we're being held to the rule.
It's a comparison.
So it's a comparison, we must compare the dredge material to the beach placement area that we intend to place it. We have, even historically, Ocean Isle Beach has used sediment compatibility test from the east end of their island, from up by Shallotte Inlet, to classify their sand on the west end of the island, because it's same sand, just different times it's going to be there. We do not have that luxury, and it's somewhat an aspect to the level of interest this project has received. They want us, and told us directly, we have to collect the samples from our placement area, and not, we cannot mix those. So whatever placement area we choose, we must identify the 5 profile lines within that placement area and sample in that area.
How much more will it cost to move this sand to Ocean Isle Beach versus another site? Will this cost us more?
Then
It will,
placing on Sunset,
yes.
it will cost, yes, I imagine.
Do you have any idea how much?
I believe we were asking $1 or something a yard for Ocean Isle Beach, when we looked at what it would cost to place it on Ocean Isle, it was something like $1 something a yard.
And how many total yards?
We have 40,000 total yards,
Okay.
$1.60 or something. But I can verify that if you'd like.
Go ahead.
In comparison, though, putting this sand on Ocean Isle, that would be cheaper than having to truck it and dispose of it in a disposal site further inland.
Yes, I believe it'd be cheaper than placing it inland or trying to negotiate easements and legal fees for trying Sunset Beach.
But isn't this sand material that cannot be placed inland?
We
It
can,
has to stay here on the,
we can store it inland for future beach placement.
okay.
Or if Ocean Isle says no, if they come out and flat out say, well, they don't want it, not that they won't pay for it, but that they don't want it, then I believe our case is very easy for a variance request to take it out of the system and have to, discuss it with Oak Island, which they have already said they'd be willing to pay to have it come there. The delta they would contribute to truck it to their location. But first, I believe we need to fully meet the intent of the rule and of keeping the sediment in the system, and in that, place material on Ocean Isle Beach. If Ocean Isle Beach says absolutely no, then I think that opens the door to do other things. But
I have
You-
a not very polite question. Didn't you say, we've already paid the survey once to do Sunset Beach. Didn't you say it was a mistake to think that we could put it there?
I did not fully vet that issue with the property owners. We did not discuss as we should have with the property owners.
Mr. Mayor, you talk about notices to the property owners, and I assume to the public that's made comments in order for this variance
Yes.
to go to the CRC. You do that by mail,
Yes.
correct?
That is our first step.
Does
yes.
that mean that the general public can make comments as well?
No, they have to have already made comments to DCM.
So
That-
if you've
that is our
already
list.
made comments, you can still make comments.
You can make comments. We do not have to respond to those or address those for the variance request. The variance request, we only have to make sure we notify all those addresses that notified the state in regard to the permit application. So if anyone who sent in a comment to the state and provided their return address, mailing address, then we have to mail out a letter to them. So if they did not send a comment to DCM, the Division of Coastal Management, we do not have to send a comment to them.
Do you have to answer their questions in
Not-
in that notice?
No, for the variance, we have to send them a copy or abbreviated copy of the variance request to let them know that, because the permit has been issued. So we have to let them know that we are requesting a variance to that permit so that they may comment to the CRC or elsewhere.
So will the people that commented and the property owners get an answer from you?
For the federal process, yes. For the state process, no.
And the federal process ends when?
Federal process is ongoing, and it's, the comments received, the comment period is over. So the comments, we have the comments, we're responding, so we don't have to respond we have the 198 comments now, and we're responding to those. And I don't believe we have to respond any more than the ones we already have. So the commenting period is over.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
For the variance request?
Mr. Bourne?
You need to be closer
You
to the
actually
mic.
don't. Yeah.
For the variance request, when is the deadline for that to be filed by? And how long do they have to answer?
The variance request, we have to have the variance request completed and accepted no later than 6 weeks prior to the next CRC meeting. The Coastal Resource Council meets every quarter. So our deadline, the deadline for the next CRC meeting is January 1st, January 1st. Their meeting is in mid-February. So we have to have the CRC, the variance request accepted as complete by January 1st in order to meet the February meeting. They will review it that day. They can take, depending on comments received, and they can take, I believe their website says 6 months to a year to respond. So they don't.
Who is allowed to make comments to the CRC?
I believe anyone.
It's my understanding that the general public is not allowed to make comments directly to the CRC.
They request, well, we're following suit as I believe they can submit comments as any
Well,
entity.
I don't mean to be argumentative, but I have asked several knowledgeable people if the general public is allowed to make comments to the CRC, and the answer is no.
Okay.
Because it's a quasi-judicial, it's like a court of hearing. I've attended many of the variance hearings at the CRC meetings.
Very well.
So I don't think that's possible for people to make comments to the CRC.
They could, well, and they would go through the DCM. Yes, they would go back to the state. They would not go directly to the council members of the CRC. The comments would go to DCM.
Right.
As the same as the permitting process. Correct. Understand.
One last follow-up.
Yes, sir.
So are we on track for the submission?
Yes. Absolutely.
are on track.
We're gonna, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions?
Do we need to do anything tonight about this funding request?
No, we do not necessarily have to. The core, the responding to the comments, we are working a little bit in advance of that. That was not in any previous scope, but understanding the importance of that, we are moving forward with that to get it done. So no, we do not have to move on that tonight.
So we could review this and have a more full discussion at our next December meeting and figure out how we're going to handle this, what we're going to do?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's it? Appreciate it. Okay, thank you. All right, next up, be our town administrator report from Mr. Marziano.
Yes, sir. Since most of my thunder's been stolen from the DOT meeting by Councilman Corbett, the dredging discussion by Mr. Neal, because we jumbled everything, I pretty much just have I'm gonna reiterate how much work is being done on those comments. Mr. Neal sent all of them to us, and the detail that is going into having to pick out all the issues from those letters, and there's some long ones. It is time consuming. So, you know, staff's attempted to help. Mr. Neal's really been doing a great job working through that. I think pretty much all of last month and going into this month, he's eating up most of his time on that. Again, tomorrow, the DOT meeting, you should expect 3 to 5 routes as possibilities to be looked at. I don't think they've narrowed it down to just one yet. So, and my experience in this is take it with a grain of salt still, even though they may have routes. That doesn't mean those will be the routes. They may still come back with other methods. They're reasonably sure these are the final picks, but that still always changes after public influence. So there is no expectations that Sunset Beach proper will be affected by it. However, transportation around this area and our own in and out routes will be. So I encourage anybody who's interested in that project, definitely go take a look at it, ask the engineers questions. This is a great opportunity that they're holding it here so close to us. And finally, next week, I just want a little announcement. The employees are doing their annual self-appreciation holiday lunch, where we all contribute our own meals and bring it. So we'll be closing Town Hall on Thursday from 11 to 2 next week, just so that I can make sure all staff can participate, so we don't have to have people lagging back and forth to watch the front. Unless anyone here has issues with that, then I'm more than happy to stay behind and let everybody go. So,
What date is that?
that'll be Thursday, the 12th.
I don't have any problem.
Oh, I'm good with it.
Unless y'all have any questions of me, that's all I've got.
All right, moving on to the department reports. Environmental Resource Committee report, Mr. Pete Larkin, you got the floor.
Good evening, council members and mayor, and a special welcome to the new council members and the new mayor. Congratulations on your hard-working campaigns. And thank you to our outgoing officials who I know worked hard, and we have new faces to look at. Per your agenda item, you requested that the ERC provide you with a status report, and I gave copies to Lisa at the start of the meeting, so they should be being passed to you right now. We at the ERC want to particularly thank council for appointing us to reestablish this important environmental program advancement team. And we're getting started slow but sure. Tonight we'd like to submit to council our initial ERC status report per your rules and responsibilities governing the ERC functions and procedures which you adopted earlier this year. I'll now summarize our report. I'll be brief. On behalf of our committee, John Farrell is present here tonight. He's also one of our committee members for the ERC, Tim Kenny and Don Eggert. We first want to thank our staff liaison. Todd, I think, is here. He may be in the other room. Thank you, Todd. Todd Rademacher, our planning director, for his assistance. He's been coaching us, as well as Lisa and Hiram and John Michaud, our stormwater manager, for their support as we were getting started here. You've got the report in front of you. I won't read it, but I'll just paraphrase some of the items in it. We've had 2 meetings so far. The first meeting, mid-October, was really just a kickoff meeting where we introduced ourselves to each other. I got our feet wet a little bit, and appointed officers and recording secretary. John Farrell is the vice chair, I'm the chair, and Tim Kenny is the recording secretary. We had a second meeting, which was really our first full-fledged meeting on November 20th. We've established to have our monthly regular meetings here in the conference room of Town Hall on the third Wednesday of each month at 10 a.m. We'd like anybody who chooses to attend, please come and give us your ideas and comments. All of our communications we've established because we don't want to violate open meeting laws because we are an appointed town committee. We'll go through Todd, our planning director. We've got several items that are under current action by the ERC. We're exploring advantages and requirements of becoming a Tree City USA program member. It's a program established by the Arbor Day Foundation, and there are some very specific benefits to the town. We're investigating what those requirements are to become a member of that. We also are looking at becoming more knowledgeable about the North Carolina Climate Risk Assessment and Resilience Plan, which is scheduled to be ratified by the governor sometime after the first of the year. It still is not finalized. We're looking very closely at the town council's climate change mitigation program, which you established earlier this year. And we want to use that as a guide for some of our initial tasks. We're going to cherry pick from that. To that end, we're formulating a list of contacts for adjacent communities that have some similarities with Sunset Beach, who also have environmental groups, so we can learn from their past experiences and programs, and particularly their successes. We're digging into the Sunset Beach land use plan, which I believe some town council members have indicated that they want to take a look at it again and possibly update that plan. We at the ERC would very much like to become included in that process to give our comments. We're looking forward to the Citizens Community Meeting, which you will be scheduling here shortly, and because we feel that citizen engagement will be an important part in our prioritizing in different initiatives that we're looking at. We have gotten by agreement, John Michaud, the stormwater management manager here in town, that we want to maintain frequent and close communications with him as he proceeds and our staff proceeds with our stormwater management program. We find that we feel that that's a very important initiative that the town is spending a lot of money on, but we want to make sure that we're also looking at discharge factors and things like that as we upgrade our infrastructure on the island and mainland for water movement. We also want to work closely with the planning board. We feel that that's very important for us to stay up on what they're looking at and what new developments might be being contemplated in the town. There's 2 specific items that we would like town council to consider. We would respectfully request that we feel we have an open position on the Environmental Resource Committee right now. One of the appointees that town council appointed previously has not been available. And we would like to see that position re-advertised so we can have a committee of 5. Right now, we only have 4 participants. Our second point that we would like town council to consider is that the present rules and responsibilities for the ERC directly involve the Environmental Resource Committee with our Technical Review Committee, our TRC, here in town. When a new development is being contemplated, or when a new facility, a new business of certain size is being reviewed, people from our police department, fire department, Department of Public Works, town staff work as a technical review committee to look at that project. It has the Environmental Resource Committee under our rules and responsibilities directly involved in the technical review committee's process. We would like to see that possibly, or you consider rewording that in our rules and regulations to be, and it'll be in the notes that you have in front of you, for us to be involved in the TRC as specifically requested on a case-by-case basis by the planning board. We feel that for us to be present for technical review committee meetings each time there is a technical review process would be onerous. That's all I have. If you have any questions about what we've been doing, any comments?
Councilwoman?
Yes. Thank you for your report. Stormwater is near and dear to my heart because it's the stormwater runoff that is the #1 pollutant of our area waters. Do you have any plans to educate the public? I feel that the general man on the street doesn't really understand exactly what stormwater is and what we can do about it. And there are some good educational programs out there that I think would be great for the community, for you guys to get involved and get the community involved in learning more about stormwater. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Yes, Ms. Harris, we've talked about that directly. We're getting our feet wet. We don't have any initiatives or any scheduled plans for community education process. However, we're working with the town and the town staff on certain items such as alternate roadway materials, things that can directly affect siltation, stormwater runoff, contamination of our marshes, and we're looking at that, and we've had very specific conversations about that. And we realize the importance of education, and that will be our focus, yes, will be one of our focuses.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, do we need to make a
Yeah.
motion for this about the upcoming ERC position?
Yes, sir. I move the council consider acceptance of the ERC report and to remove Sarah Ramsey from the committee and to authorize the town clerk to advertise the vacancy.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All opposed? All 4? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimous. The second matter that he came up with about the ERC for the town council amendment of the rules, do we need to look into that tonight? Or do we need to wait on that?
If that's something y'all do want to look at, staff will just come back with a revised draft of the rules for y'all to vote on at a later date.
I think that would be a good idea.
That takes care of it. All right, Mr.
Okay.
Clark.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks, Pete.
Next up, the financial reports. Mrs. Tara Drop.
Good evening. So you have your financial report. Is there any questions on the report? So one thing I want to do is give an update on the recycling program and where we stand with it. I do want to say thank you to Joanne. She did a great job keeping up with nearly 1,000 customers that we have this year, all by a spreadsheet, and worked really closely with Waste Industries to get this down to what it's supposed to be. So we have 925 customers. You see in front of you the cancellations we had and the non-payments. But we're going to be in January talking more about where we can move forward with the recycling program as well. That's on the directives. The other thing is that I also saw that you have the community meeting on the directives. And one of the things that I had talked to Hiram about is getting the community started involved in the budget process from the very beginning, or even before the beginning. So if it's okay with whenever you guys set for the community meeting in January, if we could advertise that to the community saying that we want budget input. We want to know what services the community thinks that we need and just where everybody stands. It would just be great to have community input from the very beginning. But that's pretty much all I have from my department right now. Was there any other questions on the audit? No? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara.
Next up will be our Stormwater Department, Mr. John Michaud.
Good evening. We have completed a few projects I listed on my monthly report. Rice Mill Circle culvert repair, which was a fairly big project. That was a Dorian-related damage project, though. And then we just completed the West Main and 28th Street project. We're working there today, actually cleaning the pipes downstream to just ensure proper flow of that system. But we cleaned catch basins and pipes, so we still have some more work to do on that. And we'll continue that this week and onward. And then we completed the 32nd Street outfall project. We still have erosion control and vegetation replacement issues to take care of there, but for the most part, that project structurally is complete. We talked about this before. In January, the latest the 21st, but I talked to Hiram about this, doing laying out the recommended order of projects and their priorities, and because I've tweaked that a little bit, and I certainly want feedback from council, obviously. So what projects I would think for the balance of this fiscal year should be attacked, their estimated cost, and and an outline of the available unappropriated funds available to do that. So I'll have that available in January. But that's basically what I have for stormwater, unless you have any other questions. Go ahead.
I have a question. On the 32nd Street outflow, are the adjacent property owners satisfied with the work that was done and that work is resolving the erosion issues that they were having?
I would not, we're not 100% complete, but
Okay.
I think we've made progress, and I think they're happy to date. I've made some commitments about getting the appropriate vegetation in place and reestablishing some irrigation so it's beneficial for them, and the easement there that the town has to make sure we have good vegetation growth there. But I think that they'll be fine. And
Thank you.
I received a lot of some feedback from them as well.
Yeah, it was a big project.
Yes, sir, it was.
Any other questions? All right, we're done with this one. The next one, the Public Works.
Thanks, John.
Dustin,
Thank you.
usually the person, Dustin Graham, but he's out, still on vacation, so John, Michelle, you'll be bringing that ordinance.
Thank you. You've got Dustin's report there for Public Works. The one thing I do want to point out, and I'll field any questions you might have, but this afternoon I stopped by there. The crew was working on the walkway over at around 1300 block of East Main, and working very hard, and it looked, they've done a good job down there, so I just wanted to point that out. But the balance of it is routine Public Works items that they've taken care of in October. So if you have any questions about that, I'll try to answer questions on his behalf, or I can find out.
I have a question maybe you take back to Dustin.
Yes, sir.
The bathroom at Main, at the end of the park, not the gazebo side, but the main.
Right.
It looks like at least one of the doors doesn't work very well.
Okay.
Appears not to stay shut
Okay.
with heavy wind. I might just check to see if
We'll check that
there's an
tomorrow.
adjustment that
Sure
needs
will.
to be made on that.
Okay.
And for a combination for Public Works and for the Planning Department, there was a intersection at 13th Street and Canal where vegetation had grown very high and it really obstructed visibility. And they've done a good job in working with the owners and doing some supplemental work to cut it back down, so it's a relatively safe intersection now.
Great.
So,
I'll pass
thank
that
you.
on. Sure,
both
I'll pass
departments.
that on.
Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, the fire department. Chief Paul Hasenmeyer.
Good evening. Anybody have any questions on the report we submitted to you? Mostly routine stuff, lots of training hours. The guys have been putting in a lot of hours training at the Island House, went to the burn building. The community risk reduction activities are up, so that's all good.
Question, are you up to full staffing?
Currently, yes.
Yeah, okay, fully manned?
Yep.
Good.
Paul, I'd like you to say a few things. The fire department came to my house the other day and changed my smoke detector batteries. If I even look at a ladder, my wife yells at me. So I don't know that everybody is aware of that program, but it's a terrific program, and it's something anybody in the town. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody's having trouble with their smoke alarms, they can call us, and we'll come check the batteries or see what the problem or issue is. We also have some of the volunteer firefighters that they kind of get a list and try to canvass a different area of town every Thursday and take care of some of those issues. So that might be one reason you see a fire truck or guys going door to door, but trying to get out and make sure everybody's smoke alarms are working.
Hey, Paul,
Thank
real
you.
quick. Along the lines of that service, I know some fire departments, if someone buys the unit, you'll actually replace the smoke detector up there as well, pull it out and put the new unit in.
Yeah.
Will y'all do that too?
Yeah, some of the newer houses are all hardwired now, so if one of those goes bad, the homeowner typically, if they go buy a new one and it's up high or something, we can figure it out. We have the ladders to make it happen.
Yeah, y'all did that last year for me. Also, very appreciated.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
not climbing 16 feet to change mine, no.
Too bad you don't live in the town.
I know.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, next up on the agenda will be our police department, Chief Ken Claymore.
Good evening and welcome Mayor Phillips, Councilman Borman, and Councilman Phillips. You have the report there in front of you. I'll answer any questions that you may have on that. I also want to add that the state of North Carolina, the Training and Standards Division for Law Enforcement has a certificate program where officers, through a combination of years of experience and training, can achieve different levels of certification. So there's a basic certification, a probationary when you're first hired, an intermediate certification, and then an advanced certificate that you can achieve through, again, through a combination of training and experience. Within the last month, 2 of our officers have achieved 2 different levels of those certifications. I want to talk about those briefly. Detective Jared Cox recently received his intermediate certification through North Carolina Training and Standards. To qualify for this, you have to have a minimum of 400 hours of training with a focus on investigations. Detective Stan Gerganis recently was awarded his advanced certificate, where Assistant Chief Joe Smith along with Detective Gerganis, traveled to a presentation that was done by the Training and Standards Division. To qualify for this, you must already possess an intermediate certificate and have either 48 training points with 12 years of experience or 60 training points with an equivalent of 9 years experience. I'm not exactly sure what those training points come out to be, but I can tell you it's a lot of training that both of these men went through. And for them to achieve this goal and get the certificate and use the resources and the skills that they've learned along the way here in Sunset Beach is definitely a benefit for the town and for the residents. So very proud of both of them. For the last couple of years, we've done a toy drive with Brunswick Family Assistance at the Walmart in Charlotte. We're again going to do that again this Saturday, December 7th from 12 to 4, where we're asking anybody in the community that wants to participate to bring us new unwrapped toys. And we're going to let Brunswick Family Assistance take them away that day. And their distribution is, I believe, the very next week. So we're getting kind of close there to that distribution date. Also, anybody that's not able to make it to Walmart, we have a tree in the foyer. If you want to place any new unwrapped gifts beside that tree, we'll make sure that Brunswick Family Assistance get those gifts in time to distribute those to local Brunswick County children. Unless there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
All right, next up is the Planning and Inspections Department. Todd Rademacher.
Thank you, Mayor. This past month, the Planning Board at their meeting discussed allowing gates on private streets in the BR2 zoning district. The discussion was relatively robust. They tabled it, and they will be taking it up at their next meeting on December 5th here at 9 a.m. To discuss some changes that they wanted to go over. We had 2 subdivisions submitted. The towns at Seaside, which we've discussed in the past, which is within the town limits, will be 208 duplexes, or individual units, if you will. There was also a single-family home subdivision, Birds Watch and Sea Trail, which is proposing the creation of 49 new lots for single-family homes along Clubhouse Drive. Both of those projects will be going to the TRC Thursday as well, after the planning board meeting for review. We've talked about on December 3rd from 4 to 7, the transportation on the Department of Transportation talking about the Carolina Bays public meeting. I'll be there at 4 o'clock myself to make sure I have a full understanding, can answer any questions that any citizens may have of us about what the project means for Sunset Beach and the surrounding area. I also attended a Brunswick County meeting where they hosted Chad Kimes with the Department of Transportation, giving an update on the status of projects within Brunswick County. Although nothing really directly affects Sunset Beach, it was good to hear about the Carolina Bays project, which has some great indirect effects as time goes on. The replacement of the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge, the plans for 17 controlled access as you head up in north and south and on the corridor, and then some various roadway improvement projects throughout mostly the eastern side of Brunswick County, obviously where the growth pressures are all located. We've done some code enforcement action. It's resulted in the removal of several notice of violations, fences, some other items in the right-of-way. Our code enforcement officer has also been out there doing some nuisance violation enforcement, sent out numerous letters over the past couple months and getting relatively good results with that over time. We currently have 17 houses under construction on the island and 29 homes on the mainland, and really have not seen any slowdowns in the development process. And with the new projects that we're seeing, we anticipate for the foreseeable future continued growth in that area.
Do I have any questions?
None.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
Might as well stay up.
Oh, yeah.
Popular. We're gonna move on to new business. First thing up is the ordinance to amend Article 6, Section 6
06. Todd will be doing that, Todd
All right.
Rademacher.
This is a recommendation from the planning board. In July of this year, there was new legislation passed, which basically eliminated any county or other local town, any local government from enacting minimum house size regulations in the state of North Carolina. So with that going into effect, we obviously needed to amend our ordinance. With the fact that it came down from the General Assembly, we can no longer enforce our existing ordinance. So what you have before you is just the various sections throughout our Article 6, which is our zoning districts in the UDO, striking out any references to minimum house size and one or two clarifications, so there was no confusion in regard to references to minimum house size within the ordinance. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward text amendment. It didn't really change anything per se as to what is and isn't allowed as uses for single-family homes, if you will. This does not in any way, shape, or form affect what a homeowners association can do. Homeowners associations can still regulate that, and we don't get involved in any of those functions. This is just what we can enforce.
Todd, we've already been complying with this law, right? This is just us cleaning house?
That is correct. And I've had several conversations with folks, not necessarily interested, but asking about the requirements and just notifying them that we no longer are legally allowed to enforce that ordinance.
Any questions?
I have just a clarification on page 4, going over to page 5. Page 4, bottom line, it's Article 6.06, dealing with MH1.
Mhm.
You still have a sentence that says the minimum size of manufactured homes shall be as followed. And then then when you edited, you made a change. I think your intention was to delete that whole line.
Yes, that would be, the intention would be to delete the minimum size of manufactured homes shall be as follows, and just to leave
Just leave the
no more than one manufactured home may be placed on any lot, and no additions or combinations or previously manufactured homes shall be joined or attached together.
Okay.
So yes, we would want to delete that sentence. Thank you.
And I didn't see anything in here about the MB2, the MUD district. Does our MUD district
Well,
say anything about minimum?
MB2 and MUD are two different districts.
Okay.
They have the same title of mixed-use districts.
Yeah.
But the MUD has no defining dimensional characteristics. MB2, however, it refers back to MR3 for single-family.
Yeah, I want to say that it got into multifamily units being 750 square feet, but it's covered by making the corrections to the other districts. It was all
That-
cleared up, but there was no specific MUD
Okay.
Yeah,
requirement.
And MB2 references a different zoning section.
Okay.
For single-family residential. With multifamily, we're still allowed to determine minimum size because they're commercial structures.
Say that again. So if it's like one of those where you have a store underneath and an apartment up top,
Right,
we can determine minimal sizes for those?
pretty much, because it's
Okay.
still a commercial structure at that point. Unless it's gonna be separated separately, and then it's a quagmire.
Okay.
Unintended consequences.
Yeah, it's a situational dependency.
Okay, that's fine.
But yes, if they're gonna do proper what they should do, without going through all the headache of doing the massive separation between the two and just sprinkling the thing, then it'll be considered commercial structure.
Okay.
Any more questions or discussion? All right, so his recommendation is the council approve of the ordinance to amend UDO Article 6 titled zoning districts. Do we have a motion?
So
So
moved.
So moved.
There you go.
Second?
Second. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. All right, Mr. Todd, moving on to the next one, the ordinance to amend Article 7, Section 7.09 fences.
All right. This was basically a cleanup from some ordinance, an ordinance that was passed some time back. We've received several complaints on fences being constructed in the BR1 zoning district, so your oceanfront homes here in town for the most part. The rear yard is actually the oceanfront, excuse me, is the street side, and the oceanfront is the actual, considered the front yard here in Sunset Beach. So the ordinance had a gap where in the B1 district, people were still able to put fences along the street front of Main Street. What this is going to do is, the recommendation from Planning Board is to make it consistent with the rest of town and to prohibit fences along Main Street in the BR1 district, and eliminate the possibility of those fences going up.
Any discussion on that? Any questions?
I have a question. Do you have a
Go
question?
ahead, Councilman.
Some of the houses on Main Street already have fences.
Correct.
What is the impact on them?
No impact on them. They'd be legal nonconformities, and those fences, since they were in compliance as to the time of the ordinance changing, would be allowed to stay. They could
Okay.
repair, maintenance, all that kind of stuff could take place.
So it affects new ones?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? No. All right, so the recommendation is for the approval of ordinance to amend UDO Article 7 titled Supplemental Regulations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Charlie.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All that are in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There's none. All right, Mr. Todd, again. Moving on to the next one, the public hearing request, Article 12, Stormwater Management Ordinance.
All right. The planning board has been reviewing over the past several months with the stormwater manager, updates to the stormwater plan. They have agreed upon some changes to the text, and would like to forward their recommendation here to the town council and recommend that you accept the planning board recommendation to schedule a public hearing for the ordinance, for January 6th, 2020 at 7 PM.
Todd, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The
Microphone,
pers-
please.
the percent of the impervious allowable seems to have gone up.
Are you talking about the 45%?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, we currently don't have a maximum impervious coverage. You can go up to 100% in theory impervious coverage on your lot, say if you are in the middle of the island, if you will, provided that anything over 30% impervious, that additional 70%, if we're talking about 100% coverage, is covered by an engineered stormwater system. What we're doing, or what we're proposing in this ordinance, is to cap impervious coverage at 45%, and require all houses, regardless of size or what have you, or anything, everybody, no matter what, you're going to have to come in and do a engineered stormwater plan for the first inch and a half of rainfall, which is consistent from what our research, what we've seen up and down the coast of North Carolina.
Could you
So-
explain that?
So that's
The
not.
1.5 inches, go ahead, finish your question,
So
sorry.
that's not affecting waterfront properties then? This is only for
This is for all properties.
mainland, for all properties?
For all properties, yes.
Doesn't waterfront property now have a lower percent?
They still have state requirements that they'll have to maintain. CAMA has I want to say, if you have a certain percentage, you can, amount of impervious that CAMA allows
Right.
within the 75 feet. And if you go, this is separate. That's only waterfront property owners. If you're the next guy over on, on some inland lot that's not on the water, if you're on the west end of the island, if you're over in Sea Trail, there's no CAMA involved. So therefore, there's no stormwater other than what local ordinance we have.
If I may, real quick, are you're saying? I mean, I know the current rules are 30% without stormwater
Correct.
controls. After 30%, you have to have stormwater controls. You're saying 45% is a hard cap. You can't go over 45% regardless.
That's correct.
Okay.
You'd have to look at certain, and basically, if I, why that is. So, right now, I'll use an example of a home that we've recently permitted that was at, the property was at a total 70% impervious. The house itself was probably at 30%, 35% impervious coverage, maybe 40% max. But they went ahead and, because we don't have a cap on stormwater or impervious calculations on the island or anywhere in town, they concreted their entire backyard. What this would pretty much push them into doing would be using some sort of alternative material in their backyard. We're not saying you can't use your backyard, we're just saying that probably a slatted wood deck, some grass pavers, some things of that nature, probably a better solution. Less stormwater potential runoff. You know, even the best engineered systems require maintenance and things like that. So just using what's a pervious or best management practice in regard to using pervious materials is, in the long run, going to have a net benefit to the town, not only for stormwater in the street, stormwater runoff to your neighbor, but as well as a strong impact on the coastal waters in our area.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
For that high percentage of impervious surface, does that not allow for larger homes? And I'm concerned mainly with the island because our stormwater goes into the area waters
Sure,
directly. And when you talk about engineered stormwater methods to take care of that, how do you make sure that what they put in will take care of all of that?
Well, that process isn't really changing. Right now, if, let's say we allow you to go up to 30% before you go and get an engineered plan. If you go to 31%, we're currently requiring you to get an engineered stormwater plan for 1% of your house, and the other 30% is left untreated, if you will. In the way we do it now and what we're proposing, in both scenarios, an engineer would be designing a stormwater plan, sealing it. During the process of installation, the engineer, what they do now and what they'll do in the future is they'll do their inspection and then they'll certify to us prior to getting a certificate of occupancy that the plan was put in per their specification. The increased benefit of what we're going to do is instead of only covering 1% of that house with an engineered stormwater plan, we're going to cover that entire structure, that entire impervious coverage by the roof structure, if you will, with an engineered stormwater plan, put it back into the ground and treat it locally on the lot as opposed to it being spread out across the town. Now, and when you get into some areas of town that have state stormwater plans, they're already going to have probably a cap on impervious surface like you have in Sea Trail or some of the other newer neighborhoods that we're seeing. They're going to have a cap on impervious coverage anywhere. The places that don't have state stormwater plans are the ones that are going to be caught up in 45%. And based on our research, there were a couple of really good articles that were put out there by Atlantic Beach, who had some studies done up and down the coast of North Carolina. Most of the towns are doing anywhere from, depending on the town and the style of town that you're talking about, anywhere from 26% to 60%, what you're looking at. John Michaud and I, researching it and doing some calculations on some permits that we pulled, felt like 45%, which is kind of in the sweet spot of what a lot of communities are doing, was a fair number to start with. If we feel like we need to be more restrictive, we can certainly, it's a zoning ordinance or a UDO, we can certainly come back and make an adjustment, or if it's too tight or too loose, either way, we can make an adjustment as time goes on, but we feel like that's going to be a number that's going to have a great benefit on the town.
Could you just clarify or explain the engineered stormwater system? You
Sure.
use that term and you use 1.5 inches.
Sure.
So what does all that mean? How do they
Okay.
relate?
So they relate in this regard. We're going to require, the ordinance is going to require that 1.5 inches of rainfall is captured. We're not going to dictate how that's done. They're going to be required to have an engineer design a system that can be mathematically calculated within the ground based on the soil. It does, generally speaking, what you see is gutters on the side of a home, put into some sort of French drain system, fabric, rock, that kind of thing, underground, where it won't be seen, and then it can be treated inside there. They're not locked into that just by saying engineered stormwater system. We're only talking about that volume of water. So they can do things other than French drains. They can do rain gardens, which is a more natural way of processing the water. You know, there's other engineered systems that they can place underground. There's swales they could potentially put in if they've got a larger lot in some areas. So there's a variety of things that by not locking them down to say, hey, you have to put this underground, that by using the state of North Carolina best management practices that an engineer can certify. Certainly, I'm not qualified to certify anything, and it gives us a backup that this was done properly and to some sort of specification for the homeowners.
And what's magic about 1.5 inches?
That is pretty much just the general standard that is used across the state for a fair amount of water that to be captured that's reasonable, to have a system that's sized for a residential property. You get much more than that, it starts getting a little bit ridiculous based on the size of your roof.
John, excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
I think 1.5 inches also is the dirtiest water
Yes.
when it comes down.
It's that first flush.
After you absorb that first 1.5 inches, the water is cleaner because you've gotten
That's correct.
Okay.
the toxins
Yeah.
and the,
Other unless we get one of these big torrential rainfalls which washes everything over the top anyway.
right.
That's,
Well,
okay.
It's like everyone says,
Yeah.
you can't design for a hurricane.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Thank you.
She's right.
Okay,
She's
I
absolutely
understand
right.
that. Thank you.
Any more questions? All right. The recommendation to accept the planning board recommendations and schedule a public hearing for January the 6th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, done for your long day. Appreciate it. All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the 2020 meeting calendar. Do I have a motion to start this, or do we need to do a motion on this one? Start it up, all right, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all right. Any discussion? Or anything?
I'd just like to point out real quick on the calendar, in September, because of Labor Day, it'll be the first Tuesday, or I guess, second Tuesday, because it'll be the 8th. Anyway, it'll be after the Tuesday after the first Monday, but because that also put us slam with the next week, we went ahead and pushed your second meeting back. Instead of being the third week, it'll be the fourth week. We didn't do that in December, though. You'll see that December still slammed back to get back to back. But largely because it was because of the holiday shifting that we did it in September. And we went ahead and canceled the second meeting in July, which traditionally this council does anyway.
One of the council members is absent, and so.
So we can, but that's why these changes are in here. As well as the planning board's first meeting in January being canceled because that's usually the week of New Year's and people are gone.
All right. Any other discussion on that? So we have our motion, our second. Do we need to go ahead and
Got to vote?
vote? That's what I'm saying, all right. Everybody's in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right. Next up is our appointment of the Cape Fear Council of Governors representative. We have a motion to open the floor.
Well, basically,
We even need-
well, real quick, usually the mayor sits as this position in most communities. It's not a requirement, but it is pretty standard. So, since you're appointing somebody, I guess you'd be looking for more of a motion for a nomination.
Okay. Do I have a motion for nomination?
I move that we nominate the new mayor, Shannon Phillips, to be our representative.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Guess I'm the next one.
Stuck with the job.
All right. Moving on to number 6, the appointment of the GSAT, I think we call it GSAT's representative. Want to open it up with a motion there?
Can I discuss just a little
Go
bit
ahead,
first?
Please.
Okay, for the past 3 years, I've been the alternate member of the GSATs. And so my suggestion to think about is I would be glad to continue as the primary representative unless somebody has a burning desire to do that. But then I would suggest that one of our new council members who still has 4 years to go would be designated as the alternate.
Yes,
I think that's a great idea.
I agree with that. Do we want to go ahead and talk about who may be putting somebody on that before we go to the motions to finish it out, or
I'd be willing to serve as the alternate.
I get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All's for aye?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed?
Let me just add one thing there. The next GSAP meeting is December 20th from 10 to 11:30. It's Carolina Shores Town Council meeting. I'll be going to that, and if you're available, it'll be a good idea to come with me and introduce you to the,
Yeah, but he can go not as a
he can go sit in the
member,
back,
he can go and watch it.
sit in the back, and I can introduce him. That's,
All right, next up on the agenda is the scheduled community meeting and time and the date. And, I don't know if any of y'all looked at that yet, but I talked to Lisa today and we consider this, if y'all want to consider it and check your schedules. But we will be having two. One will be an afternoon session, one will be a morning session. The proposal that I'm looking at to see, let y'all find out about is on Thursday, the 23rd of January. And that would be a morning session. And it would be run from maybe 9 until, you know, the time that y'all see fit. That's up to y'all to decide the period of time that we need in between there. And the second one, the Tuesday one, we were looking at maybe the 28th, which would be the following Tuesday. That would be a night meeting. And maybe looking at possibly 6 o'clock as a starting time due to it being dark and winter time and all. So can we have some discussion on that, or? some recommendations?
Well, I'll be out of town on the 23rd.
You will be on the 23rd. Anyone
Actually,
else?
When
from
you
the
coming
10th
back?
to the 23rd.
Is that something that we have to have all council here for, Lisa, or is that an open, would it be in a community meeting like that? Is it required that everybody be here?
It's not required.
Okay.
I prefer to be
Common
here.
courtesy to be here? Yeah, okay. Well, if we want to go with the 28th, I can understand that, but on the 30th, I know I take you and him both, will be in a meeting on the 30th, so we'll be out of town that day. So that would definitely knock that Thursday out. So then we need to look, I guess, to going on up into February. Which, our first, let's see, February, I got my calendar.
So did we say then the 28th for the
Yes,
AM
we're-
meeting?
we're
Be
still, I
the-
guess we're still
be
discussing that one.
right now, we're looking at 28th for the evening meeting.
For the evening meeting.
We're gonna change it to the evening meeting?
Well,
That's
We
what
had
you
it
had
down
for the
morning,
20.
but we can't,
We got the 23rd is the morning, the 28th is the evening, is what you said.
okay, you're right, I'm sorry. Yeah, right now, is that as the evening meeting? What about the times on that? What times do you want to look at?
Why don't we change the 28th to the morning and the afternoon sessions? And then pick another date for the night session?
Does anybody else have any problem with that, or?
No,
something you have discussion?
I have one question. The last one we had was to get more people there. Didn't we do that on a Saturday?
We did.
Well,
Yeah.
Do we want to look at doing some on Saturday? I'm
Yeah.
open to whenever, I mean, it's just, we were just trying to come up with something today, but if we want to look to doing it on Saturdays, and we want to do it on Saturday morning, we want to do another one on Saturday evening, or a different evening.
well, if we
whatever-
do it
whatever's
Saturday,
best.
we probably only need to do one.
I'd also like to remind you that we have staff show up for those meetings.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
two evening or Saturday, or it's gonna generate a lot of overtime hours for our people.
Yeah.
So I would pick, if you're gonna do a Saturday, I would not pick a night meeting as well during the weekdays, was just what I'm getting at.
I would go for a Saturday morning, something like 10 to 12,
Everybody else?
or
Good with that?
9:30 to
Discussion
12,
there?
yeah,
Good for
whatever.
me.
But I would think, given the impact on the staff, that I would think one meeting would be sufficient.
Well, I was just saying if we are gonna do multiple meetings, if we're gonna make one of them a Saturday, I would just request that we didn't have an evening meeting, since several of our people do have to drive, like, one is driving over an hour home, so.
I
So
would-
if we do a day meeting during the weekday and then an evening Saturday or something like that, I'm just trying to get at, I don't wanna have them away from their families for too long in the same month, back to back.
I don't think Saturday night's a good time to have a town meeting.
Yeah. So what do y'all want, y'all's recommendation is what? Tell us that.
I would suggest
Then we'll-
just one Saturday meeting.
Saturday, and preferably a morning meeting?
Preferably,
Yeah.
Yes. And maybe make it, instead of 10 to 12, 10 to 1. I think the last one we had, we ran out of stuff, and didn't we end a little early?
We took a lot of questions. We also had two people absent.
Is that from the last
The-
one?
the ma-
The
the
last
mayor-
one, the mayor and the council
council.
member were
Right.
absent.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I would like to see a little more organization than the last one we had.
Well, I think we said we have to video it, right? Or we want to video it.
Y'all want the video, but so we
And
had
so
it
we
here.
should do it here, so we have a controlled environment, and the mic's there, the camera's already set up for it. And the mayor comes, and the mayor moderates the meeting and keeps control of who asks the questions, designates who answers the questions, and if we run into the thing, we're getting the same question over and over again, we move on to another topic. That's that type of thing. But is that the type of moderation or organization you're talking about?
Yes, but I'd also like to see some, for instance, we had a number of suggestions from the public, but we never acted on them. For instance, I'm going to give you the example of, it was mentioned that some people might like to see a committee on cabanas, and that never came about. If something like that is talked about, I would like to see some type of action, either designated for down the road or
My
whatever.
recollection is that a subsequent meeting, we talked through the agenda of what was the main points that were raised and kind of determined what we were going to do about it, if anything. We didn't do anything on everything. Didn't do something on everything.
There was, I just gave
Yeah.
that as one example. There were a number.
Yeah, I'm not arguing,
issues.
I'm not arguing with that, but we did as a council come back, talk about it, and then report back at the council meeting as to what we would or would not do, as I recall. Anybody else there?
Didn't we have, didn't
We compiled a list of all the topics that were brought up at the last meeting, and y'all went over those topics and decided what to put on the directives and what not to. And if anything made it to the directives, then we handled it.
I do not remember discussing whether or not to have a committee on cabanas to get the people's feelings. I do not remember discussing that. Maybe we did, but I don't remember it.
Well, this time, point taken, we'll look at a different, I think you're looking for follow-up, not organization.
Absolutely.
So we'll do a little more detailed follow-up for your packet for y'all.
Okay, great.
So we're looking in, so now we're looking into a Saturday, and Charlie, you said you was gonna be out of town. So how about the 25th of January? Does anybody have any problems with that? You said you'd be back on the 23rd, or?
I'll be back on the 24th, but I can do Saturday morning.
That'd be fine with y'all?
25th would work for me.
Everybody seem to work?
25th.
Work good for y'all? The time being maybe tentatively 10 to 1?
Oh, crap.
And then we'll go from there? Wait a minute. Go ahead, sir.
No, I'll be back.
Okay.
No, my wife had different plans.
He might not be here. All right, so this will be the motion then that we'll be looking for, is a motion for having the meeting on, we said January the 25th, from 10 to 1 tentatively. If we don't have enough things going on, we can always end it early. And we'll go from there. Is that gonna be what we're looking at?
From what y'all discussed, yeah, you've also got two suggestions for, primary discussion topics. ERC would like to have discussion on environmental topics. Ms. Drop and myself would like to have public input on budgetary items. I think in that time frame, there's enough for both. I would just request if you, I don't think you need it in your motion, but we're probably gonna advertise it, that those would be our primary, inputs. While all input is welcome, we would like to focus, at least at the beginning of the meeting, towards those subjects.
So
If
those
that's all
would
right
be
with
two
y'all.
vocal points, but all,
I'll-
anything that needs to come up can come up
Anything
at
can
that
come
meeting.
up, it's a community
Yes.
meeting, but we'd still like to focus towards those areas at
Yes.
the beginning of the meeting.
Okay,
And we can organize that with an agenda.
that sounds
Yeah.
fair,
Which
everybody.
we did not
Yeah.
have it.
Right, and we'll have an agenda this time, but I'm just gonna put in the ad that we'll be focused on environmental topics and budgetary topics at the beginning of the meeting.
Sounds good.
All right, we got a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Next up, disposition of directives. Well, do we want to open a motion, or do we need one for this, or just let's, y'all want to add anything
We ought to
to it?
review what we have.
As far as I see, staff stuff's still right, between Tara and John. So there's no changes on 4 and 5.
Anything else?
Well, based on the discussion we had with Mr. Neal, we should have a discussion on the sand placement on OIB
At the next meeting,
at the next meeting,
as well as his proposal.
yes.
That'd be 2 items. I mean,
Yeah,
his price proposal and then also utilizing Ocean Isle Beach.
1217.
1217, yes, sir.
What about an ERC rules amendment that got brought up? Y'all want us to have that sometime in January for you?
What's the reasonable time to,
I mean, I could probably have it
it's
for-
basically a one-line,
Yeah, I can probably have it for you at the next meeting if you want me to. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I was gonna run it by their board first, make sure they're okay with the language, and their meeting will be after your next one.
Should be fine. That gives us 2 meetings before that
What's
comes
the
up then, correct?
Yeah, it'd be-
aren't they meeting December 5th?
The ERC? That's the
Oh.
planning board.
Okay.
Yeah, the ERC's next meeting will be
Yeah.
9.
So
Oh,
this-
so it's gonna be the week before.
So this would basically. put
Never
this
mind, I
in
can
a-
have it for the next one.
I would say let's do it and get it over
No,
with.
wait, I'm sorry. I'm looking at January. I'm an idiot tonight.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
Okay,
I can have it for the first meeting in January.
first meeting in January, which will be the 6th, correct?
Yes.
So we'll add the ERC stuff on it, the 6th. Anything else?
No.
No discussion, that's it? All right, got a motion? Don't need nothing on this one? All right. Next, our next thing in will be the public comments section. Would anybody like to speak? Guess everybody's quiet. So nerves is over.
I move we close the meeting.
Adjourn.